Hey everybody, this is PJ Riley from Lancaster Archery here at the 2020 ATA show in Indianapolis. I am in the Easton booth with Clint Warner. And Clint, we got a great new arrow from Easton here. I want you to tell us about it and tell us about why it's extra cool.
I will. So this is our new 6.5 matrix. Okay, so it's a 6.5 millimeter arrow. This is an ultralight arrow. Okay, so it's in our 6.5 family. It's the lightest weight arrow. Just for reference, this is a 400 spine, 7.4 grains per inch. What makes it really unique is it features Easton's accu-carbon process. Now, Easton's process is different from any other way of making arrows. And it's not just marketing hype. It actually produces an arrow that's better with spine consistency, and it's better with weight consistency. And let me explain how. With the way that conventional arrows are made, they wrap carbon fiber fabric around a mandrel. That creates a seam on the shaft. That seam makes those arrows, it could make those arrows harder to tune because of the seam. It can create spine inconsistencies, etc. The other thing that process is it's susceptible to weight variation. So when you make arrows that way, and it's an okay way to make arrows, but you have to do a post after you make them sort for weight. So you take your arrows, you weigh them all, you put them into dozen bundles, and they all weigh fine within the dozen bundle. The problem comes in when after you buy the arrows, you shoot them, you're down to 2 or 3 left, you go to buy a new dozen. Those arrows could be 15 to 25 grains different in weight than the original dozen, depending on the lot that they were made from. So that creates, that can be problematic too. It's frustrating. Easton's process, we make them in the USA. In order to be competitive with the wrap and roll process, we have to figure out how to automate that process. So our process is highly automated. It's a continuous process. And so our arrows are seamless by design. There's no seam on the arrow. The other thing, well, the reason that's good is it makes those arrows easier to tune because it has better spine consistency. The other thing, the big thing, is that all of our arrows are made on a single die and a single mandrel on each machine. So arrow number 1 and arrow number 50,000 that come off that machine weigh the same. So that's a big deal. If you bought a dozen Axis arrows a year ago, it's going to weigh the same as a dozen arrows that you buy today. If you buy a dozen of these 6.5s, it's going to weigh the same as it does a year from now. So that's going to make an arrow that's more easier to tune, more accurate, less frustrating, right?
I like your explanation that it's a continuous process, that this arrow is, as it's being constructed, it goes through, it cuts off, and it just keeps going. So it's not a new process, it's just continuing.
Well, when you make arrows through the conventional way, every single arrow has to be made on a separate mandrel. Okay, those mandrels have to be, they straighten the mandrels, they have tolerances. It introduces a lot of variability into the equation when you have to do that. By being able to produce a lot of arrows on a single mandrel, I mean, it's common sense. You can think that, wow, that's going to produce an arrow that's much more consistent. And look, the narrative has always been about straightness. Yep. There's more to arrows than straightness. A perfect arrow has good spine, and a perfect arrow has good weight. And what we want to say is that the Easton's process, what we call accu-carbon, our accu-carbon process addresses all 3 things to make a perfect arrow. Our arrows have really relatively perfect spine consistency. Our weight consistency is off the charts. And we have, the good straightness specs depending on the model that we're trying to do. So there's a lot more there to making perfect arrows than just straightness.
And what you've done here with the Matrix is there's a little feature in there that helps to show that process.
Exactly. And I would say over the years, we've been doing the process the way we've been doing it for a long time. Our Axis arrows are made that way. Our injection arrows are made that way. Our bloodline arrows are made that way. Our aftermath arrows are made that way. And they're made in the USA, right? But because people can't see that, it's hard for people to understand why it's better. So the straightness is kind of the only thing people can really get. Yeah. So what we did on Matrix was unique because we wanted to visually distinguish the arrow that we make with that process in a way that people can easily understand what we're saying. So if you look here on the outside of the Matrix, you'll see it has an external wound layer of carbon that creates a crisscross weave weave pattern on the shaft. And it makes it really easy for a shop owner to explain to an average customer, just watch, look at this arrow. You can follow the piece of carbon fiber all the way down the length of the shaft and see that there's no seam. It makes it simple, makes it very easy to understand, and now that message of consistent spine, consistent weight, good straightness, perfect arrow, makes it a lot easier to relay that message to the consumer.
Awesome. That is the Matrix from Easton. They're showing you why it is different and why it is better. We certainly appreciate that. If you like this video, give us a thumbs up. If you want to see more videos like it, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Don't forget to click that bell to get notifications whenever we put out new videos. And as always, if you have any questions, you can visit us at LancasterArchery.com.